to. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. And all right, very good. So this is another thing that I thought was very interesting. Just throwing out the cool things that technology does. It's doing live subtitling. That's pretty good. I'm surprised at how well it's picking up and doing, concurrent subtitling. Although it is a little bit distracting, so I think I'm going to turn it off. But it's amazing the things we can do here. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. One moment. Okay, if anybody can't see my screen, please let me know. So we'll go ahead and dive in here. So my name's Casey DeBose, and I'm going to be doing our presentation today. The scope of today's presentation is talking about the no-code legal department, or essentially what are the technologies that are out there that can help you manage your in-house counsel role and manage your department a little bit more efficiently, and what are some of the trends that we're seeing in the in the in the marketplace right now. Now, our agenda for today, let me pull that over to here, give you a little more details into what we're talking about. Our agenda for today is going to really cover three main areas. The first one is providing you a summary of, oops, providing you a summary of the, apologies, I just got a text from someone who's trying to get into the meeting. So if you'll bear with me, let's just see if we have. All right, back to the content here. So I want to start from the theoretical, from the theory, from the process, and then we'll get into the actual hands-on technology that we've done. So starting with some of the challenges that you all are facing, some of the processes and general approaches that we find, looking at the standards from the Legal Project Management Institute. And then finally, I want to demonstrate tools that we've developed, Jalubro's developed in Smartsheet, which is a piece of software that helps along this process, helps do the standardization and employs a level of automation in the process. Now, since it's a small group of us today, feel free to interrupt with questions as you go along. I'm happy to take anything, happy to dive in somewhere. It's more fun when we have interaction. So feel free to dive in, of course, in the interim. And if you don't have a question, please try and keep your mic muted so that we don't get feedback from anybody joining. A quick introduction about myself. I am formerly in-house counsel. I'm an attorney that's licensed in the state of Washington, the United States. And previously, I was in-house counsel at Thomson Reuters. In that role, I ended up transitioning over into more of a management consulting type role. We were selling a piece of software called Serengeti Tracker, which is a legal matter management and e-billing software. And then I transitioned into using Smartsheet. Smartsheet, I was using it for my projects and really enjoyed using it to manage the workload that we had as we deployed this software and worked with General Counsel. And their headquarters was just down the street, so I joined them and continued on in this consulting role, working with some of the largest some of the largest companies in the world. And now, as I've joined Jalubro, I've gone back to my roots and gone focused exclusively on the legal market and providing advice and counsel and just general consulting for how to improve the law department operations around the world. I'm based in Taiwan, so it's just a couple of hours ahead or earlier from you, and we have members of our team all around the world. Our corporate headquarters is in the UK, if you were curious. Now, I don't know if you all are members of the Association of Corporate Counsel, but they do a great survey every year of all of their members, and they publish this benchmark report. And the benchmark report is a great document to read through because it gives you a snapshot of what are other corporations seeing, what are other lawyers and other corporations seeing in their in-house counsel roles. And one of the things that we consistently hear back is that corporate counsel are very, very busy. If we take the averages of what people are seeing in their roles, they're handling 173 contracts a year and juggling up to 9 litigation matters at a time. And of course, in your role in house, you may, depending on the size of your department, you may be the one that's the jack of all trades. You're getting questions about litigations and HR, and is this promotional material okay for this region, and you're going to get questions from all sides of the business. And at the end of the day, that's a lot to manage and it's a lot to keep track of. One of our goals for this presentation is to help show you some tools that can help in the process of managing that, tracking the requests, and providing better service to your stakeholders, to the people that you provide support to. And in that way, not only reduce your workload, reduce the burden on you, but also show better value for your company and the people that you're helping. Now, of course, in this world where you're juggling 170 something contracts, the truth is that in-house legal teams generally don't have a lot of staff, and especially don't have a lot of staff that is dedicated to legal operations. If you compare your staff, if you compare the budget that goes to your sales department versus the budget that goes to your legal department, and you compare the number of admins in the respective departments, I think that's a pretty quick comparison to the vast disparity in the type of support that you're getting in legal departments. And if you look at the benchmark report, it shows that only about 3% of staff in in-house departments are deployed or employed in the legal operations profession. So to fill in that gap, we need to come up with processes that standardize how it works, how your company does work. We need to use technology to analyze and take a look at matters as they come in. And we need to figure out efficient ways to decide which projects maintain their work in-house, which projects get farmed out to outside counsel, and um, how do you balance that? Now, if you haven't run across this organization, there's an organization called the International Institute of Legal Project Management, and they have offices all around the world. Australia, I know, has a group there, and it's a group of folks that are providing materials and information about what's the definition of how to run legal projects um, efficiently. There are other project management organizations. You may have heard of the credential of project management professional, or an agile certified professional. These are other agencies that go out there and accredit individuals for their ability to track or to do the steps that are found in project management. Well, the International Institute of Legal Project Management does that same work with an eye towards legal project management. Now, here at Jalubro, we're all members of that organization and are certified by it to provide these share these principles and then provide the support in legal projects. And part of what I'm going to show you today is a short summary of some of the key points around legal project management and then how that can be shown or used through software. Now, if we talk about the process flow or the life of a matter in a corporate legal department, it really goes through, I would say, four main phases. The first one is going to be that intake phase. You get notification somehow of the matter. You in-house are going to do some sort of an assessment to see what is the risk associated with this matter, who's going to handle it. Then there's the phase of actually resolving the matter. The matter management is the term we use there, and that can be in terms of if it's a short NDA, that's a quick production of the documentation, turn around and send it back out. If it's a mergers and acquisition, it could be a multi-month project that involves major outside counsel spend and potentially internal, outside consultant spend as well at the same time. And then of course that flows to a resolution of the matter. At each stage of this process, you can use technology to assist and standardize the process that you have. One of the first ones that I want you to think about is, what is your expectations? What is your experience when you get a request from the business to do something? When you get an intake for a particular action item or a particular piece of legal work from the business? Now, oftentimes it's just an email. Somebody sends you an email and says, "Hey, we need help with we need you to prepare this contract. We need you to review this reseller agreement. We signed a contract years ago, and now we have a dispute, and we didn't talk to you about it. So can you please fix our mess?" You get the whole gamut of the types of requests that come in. But one of the first questions, or one of the best sets of questions to start as you intake, is a question of, well, the six that we have here, and I don't need to read them off to you since you can see the slide, but it is a question of, why are we doing the project? Um, who's delivering it? How much is going to cost, and how long is it going to take? Now, in answering these questions, there is an assessment, and an assessment as to how you should assign the risk and where you should assign the types of matters. Now, we generally categorize types of matters into these four general buckets. And we recommend, when you send a matter or you decide who's going to handle a matter, to think about these high risk to low risk and high complexity to low complexity um, matters. I'll give you an example of a low risk, low complexity matter, that NDA example. If you have the processes internally, let's say you have the suitable templates, you have the suitable or a general sales contract, if you have those templates provided, that's a type of work that can be set up through a portal so that the individual comes in, they make the request to legal, and either legal does a quick turnaround, or you can even set up software, Smartsheet being an example of one, where you can have it produce the document for you based on the information that has been submitted in the form to create the document. So they could provide the name of the contracting party, provide their information, provide the signing party. It spits it out, sends it back to them as a DocuSign or Adobe Sign, and legal has to do very little management whatsoever of that task. Examples, another type of example where we see a lot of growth, or we see more and more firms are in the low risk, high complexity matters. And this is where the alternative legal service providers have come in to be pretty handy, especially for large volume firms, corporations, where you're doing a lot of the same type of work. Well, if you can find yourself an outside firm that can handle that, and you can negotiate a standard volume rate for that type of work, it's a good way to do it. Now, some examples of that work: run-of-the-mill real estate and lease management contracts, or if you're doing immigration contracts, another classic one, where if you kind of have that standard process of bringing in outside some person from outside of your country, you need to go through the federal immigration regulations to get them employed in your country. That type of work is easily handled by outside ALSPs. And of course, the last two categories up here at the high risk is usually where you in-house are going to be spending a lot of your time. In the low complexity matters, perhaps it's your classic HR dispute, HR litigation type matter that might go to a set of your panel firms. And then of course the high complexity, where you need the best of the best, or at least unfortunately the most expensive attorneys, to give you advice as to whether or not your credit card agreement is in compliance with the most recent version of GDPR, or if your data centers are set up correctly. That type of work generally has to get sent out to those specialist law firms. But in reviewing or intaking matters, doing the intake, asking these questions, then assigning a categorization can very much help you as you go into the matter management phase of working with a matter and taking it to its conclusion. Now, we talked about intake. We talked about we talked about matter management. We talked about assessment. The last thing I want to talk about from a slide perspective, before we actually get in and I start showing you some of the tool, is the matter management yourself. Now, matter management comes in many forms. One of the forms, is there a question? Hello?
Sorry, no.
Oh, okay. All right. So if you look at the right side of the slide, what I think most legal departments have is that very light touch project management. And they may not even have that, where you get a matter dropped on your desk and you go through and you do your best to find out what the scope of it and to send some regular status update reports. As you get into more complicated matters, say a large merger and acquisition, having a structure around how the matter goes from beginning to end, what are the associated tasks with it, and who's doing what, can very much increase and improve your ability to control costs and to allow for um, allow for your business stakeholders to have a better view of what's going on in the matter. And this is where I think legal departments can very much shine, because when you come to the table and can with a plan, they've come to you with an issue and you come to the table with a plan saying, all right, well, in a traditional litigation, we have these 5 phases, and these are the steps that we're going to need to follow through. And this is approximately how long it's going to take. And we recommend we hire this outside counsel to work with it. That gives you an approach that you can take to your board or take to the members of your management staff that shows a level of professionalism and helps them feel better about coming to you with problems. So instead of you being sometimes legal is considered to be a hurdle or a barrier in the closing of a deal, you end up being in a position where you're coming and helping structure and push through a deal to conclusion. Couple of final slides here. This is a little bit more of an in-depth, and I'll send you a copy of these slides as well at the end of the presentation here, but a little bit more of an in-depth breakdown as to what you would see in a project plan, like a truly high touch project plan for legal project management. You see a breakdown of the define, plan, deliverance, and close items. And at Trelubra, what we have is we have a number of pre-developed templates that parallel most common types of work. So if you have to raise a claim, we have a template for that. We have a template for mergers and acquisitions, and all of these templates sit in Smartsheet. So when you're ready, when you come across a new project, you can take that template off the shelf and then start filling out the information that you need. Now, before I go into demonstrating Smartsheet, anybody have any questions thus far?
Just one question in terms of those templates.
Sure.
How jurisdictionally based are those versus kind of, because obviously, like a claim and
Correct.
litigation can be quite different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction.
Yeah, and you make a very good point. We have pretty good templates for common law based countries. Is the short answer. So we've got U.S. and U.K. And frankly, not a lot for Australia and New Zealand, but the templates themselves in common law, you're at least going to see the general phases of what you would see in a litigation. But we don't have any criminal. We don't have a lot of corporations that have to do criminal law, so it's all common law based templates, which I'm happy to share with you if you want to. If you have some examples or questions of types that you want to see, I can share them with you after the call here. Now, this screen that we have up here is a process diagram, and I just wanted to show some of the tools or some of the tools that we typically deploy if you were to deploy everything using Smartsheet or revamp an internal legal department. And what Smartsheet does is it provides you a number of ways of interacting with information in the life cycle of a matter. To start, we start with some type of a law department dashboard or a site. And what that is that's a piece where you can set up a standard landing page for your company that represents the legal department. And on that, you can have the information about your team. You can have commonly requested forms and documents and policy and procedure manuals, put that all available so that people can self-serve and pull that information. And then oftentimes we also embed or include some type of a legal request form. And what that does is that allows the business person, if they have a request, to come and fill out that information, and then trigger this process of notifications to get the request to the right person in legal and to get it tracked till its conclusion. And that's where, once we get to the legal request form, we start seeing a little bit more complicated decision paths depending on the type of matter. This cycle is great for corporations for another reason, because it allows some visibility back to the requester, the person at the business who's asking for support. When you make an update in the internal legal tracker, you can send that back out to a legal ticket dashboard, a dashboard that that individual could see, and she could see, oh, I have these 4 requests, and they're sitting with X associate general counsel, and this is where they are in the status of the or in the life cycle of the matter. All too often, you do the work, but you're hindered by some lack of information that you're requesting from the business. You request it from the business, and then of course 2 weeks later they say, why hasn't this been completed? And well, it hasn't been completed because we've requested this information from you and no one has gotten back to us. Having an open communication network between the tickets that come in and any open or pending questions around that really helps speed up the velocity of those transactions, and it just provides transparency for everybody involved, so stuff doesn't fall off the plate. Or if one of your members goes on vacation, their matters don't just sit in the ether until the person comes back. You're able to pick them up and continue working with them. Now, if you move into the world of having a major matter, a matter that's going to take more than a couple hours to resolve, or where you're thinking about including outside counsel, that's where you can deploy a matter toolkit, a full toolkit of a project plan and a budget tracker and a location to store shared documents. And you can create this toolkit and share it with your outside counsel or with other members of your business, so that you're all working in the same location. And action items can be tracked, notifications can be driven from there, and reporting can be pulled out of those projects and sent out to your general counsel or to any other individual that wants to have a dashboard view of the work that's being done in the company. So this is your 20,000-foot view of the pieces of the tools that we would typically see when we create a digital transformation within a corporate legal department. And I am going to start us off by going to my browser, and we'll take a look at a legal department site. We'll take a look at the legal request form, the tracker, and we'll also look at some of these GC dashboards. I do want to be cognizant of your time. I know I've only allocated 45 minutes here, so let's get to the meat of the show here. So out of this, I go, and to the browser, I transition. Here we are. Okay. So this is your first view into Smartsheet. What we have here is an example of a legal operations dashboard. And this dashboard has what I just mentioned. You have links to various portions of the legal department. You can share quick links to specific information about your corporation, and you can work with and you can provide information about your team. This is kind of a classic dashboard. The dashboards in Smartsheet are infinitely flexible, more or less. So we customize them for your team and for the information that you need to have on there. When you work in this tool, you can design different views for different types of users. So this view is designed for the legal operations team. If you were a business user, you could share this view to an individual, and they could come in and they could see information about it, or they could submit a request. And this contact request form is going to go into that internal legal tracker. So I'll give you an example right now. We'll do a quick filling out of this form, and I'll walk you through the life there. So I'm requesting a contract, and we'll choose our location. We'll choose our department. We'll do credit lending, and let's just make it that simple example. Let's do a mutual NDA. Small contract, actually no liability cap, no personal data. We would like this to come within the end of next week. Manager's email. I'll add Aaron. And then how would we like to receive it? Who's going to be signing it? It's going to be John Smith and Smith. So this form is a Smartsheet form. You can customize them. We've created forms for a general contract request here. The other types we often do are just general legal requests. Or if you have a specific types of information you want to collect, you can collect it here at the upfront. The great thing about this is that it's standardized. So it's coming in, you're asking the questions up front. If there are attachments that need to be attached, they can do it there, and they can bring it into the sheet. Now this is going to trigger an automation, and that's the term we use for workflows in Smartsheet. What automations are different ways to send notifications out of the system. And if we go back here, I'll show you. Oh no, I know where it is. It's down here. So this request has come in. Now we can set up rules about who do we want to have see this information, see this notification as it comes in. Here we have a dashboard that's just focused on the contract, say how many are open, how long has it been taking to close this, what type of agreement has come in, who owns the contract at what stage, any new contracts that have been come in. And if we go to the actual contract repository, the contract tracker, where these sheets are where these requests are coming in, this is where most of the work gets done. Now this view that you're seeing, it's very similar in view to Microsoft Excel. I mean, if you've worked with Excel, the user interface is very similar to that. What Smartsheet does though is it adds a few layers of interaction on top of that. So from this sheet, you can set up notifications. So for example, when this new request came in, it's a new form submission, an email was sent to myself and to Aaron, since we're the two members of the legal department, saying there's a new request. Could you come in and take a look at it? In reviewing this request, I can say, okay, this is NDA. This is pretty straightforward. I'm going to pass this over to Brent Williams. He can go through and do the work for me. So I think that looks right. Let's assign it to him for attorney review. When I do that, notification goes to Brent. Brent can come in, he can take a look at the information. If there are, once he's provided or prepared the document, he can attach it to the row here, and he can share this content to the requester at the end of the day with the final piece of documentation. So if you saw what happened there, this moved from the new form submission down to the bottom here as a new request that's come through. So attorneys can provide their documents, track the status of their matters all the way through until they end up at the fully executed version of it. A lot of times what we do associated with contracts in particular is once a contract has been completed, we push that information over to a contract repository. And in that repository, you keep yourself a list of all of the contracts that the company has, their renewal dates, and then you set up notifications to go along with that. So based on whatever the renewal term is of the contract, and you can enter that in as a field, the renewal term is a 45-day notification renewal. Okay, so 60 days before the renewal term, we're going to send a notification to both the attorney that did the work and the business partner to remind them they need to come in and take a look at this contract and decide whether or not they want to allow for the renewal or if they need to move into negotiations. Those type of automations, that type of tracking can be done automatically once you get the system set up to flow. And once you get the data into a database, you can visualize it. You can put it into dashboards, and you can make it available to your team to review. So here, as I showed you a moment ago, this is where the content of that tracker would reside. As your matters get opened and closed, you can see how they're progressing through the system. So that's an example of a very simple turnaround type request. Now let's say that you have a more complicated matter that you're working on, or one where you need to use the full tool set of matter management. Well, that's also available to you in Smartsheet. And that tool I'll give you an example of one is called a project toolkit. And within that toolkit, we have a few sheets, a few tools that get used as they go through their life cycle. So here we have a dashboard that we've created for the Smith Employment Matter. It brings in information from the project plan as to its current status, updates, what are upcoming tasks, phases, any tasks that are completed. All that information is being tracked on the project plan. But here you give yourself a nice project dashboard for the matter. Now, this information can be shared with outside counsel, so they can come in and they can provide their own updates. And if we go into the plan itself, we see the um, very traditional project plan that you would see if you've ever used Microsoft Project or if you've used another project management tool set. This is the type of drop down that you see. And here we have an example of a template that's based on commencing a claim. So what are the steps to it? And as you go through, you can assign individuals to it. Similar to our internal tracker, these types of notifications can go along with it. So when you assign Larry Lawyer the initial risk assessment, Larry can receive a notification. This is Larry, this is a task, it's due on the 10th. You can have follow-up notifications so that if the information hasn't been completed by the 10th, they're going to get a follow-up notification saying that this item was due. You can do that for any of the users that you want to assign tasks to. And of course, as you go through the, let's go to the Gantt view. Here, if you're familiar with that waterfall breakdown, you see the tasks in their order. And so as a task, let's see, our initial risk assessment gets pushed back a little bit. No, that one's not a great example. There we go. We see the rest of our tasks move with it. So you get yourself a good view of the tasks associated with a matter. One final thing we'll take a look at here is financial data. So depending on how your legal department receives invoices, we can do levels of auditing those invoices as they come in. Now, the standard for electronic invoices is the legal electronic data exchange standard, the LEED standard, which has been around for about 20 years. And a lot of firms or a lot of companies that employ e-billing systems end up using that or request that standard from the outside counsel, because when those invoices come in, the outside counsel is required to submit what is the timekeeper's name, what is their rate, what type of a timekeeper, are they a partner, are they associate, are they a paralegal, and then what's the task associated with it, in addition to the narrative that comes through. All that information can be captured by an e-billing system and reflected in reporting that you can bring into Smartsheet or bring into whatever other financial tool you're using to flag your invoices as they come through. At Gelubro, we have a couple of pieces of technology that allow you to work with your firms to submit those types of invoices. So submit e-bills either as a leads invoice, or if they do come submitted as a PDF, we have technology to scan those PDF invoices and pull out the pertinent data and then do some analysis on them to say, okay, well, here we have an example of a firm or we have a partner meeting that looks like they had 4 partners in a meeting on this matter, which doesn't seem to make any sense. We don't need to have that many people on a simple matter, catching other types of general violations that you would see with your lead outside counsel guidelines. So violations from the expense, if they're charging you for first class flights, if they're charging you for telephone calls, if they're charging you for copy charges. If you're a corporate client, you really don't need to be paying for those. And helping you catch those flags or catch those annual increases that all the firms love to send quietly under the radar as they increase their rates for all of their associates each year. That is a piece of technology that can be accessed along with Smartsheet, and the output of that technology comes in the form of dashboards such as the one we have here. Here's a dashboard where we're taking our fiscal spend and breaking it down by month and by the budget of the respective firms that we have here. and then breaking them down by the type of matter and some of the other metrics associated with it, with the matters that you have created in the system. All right, well, we're coming to 40, and we got about 5 minutes left before y'all can head off. Let me jump back to the current slide and talk about, oh, my subtitles are back on. Let's turn that off. Okay. So the core capabilities of Smartsheet are multitudinous. And in addition to the few pieces that we showed you here, in our consulting, we found many, many, many use cases of how you can use Smartsheet to fill in the gaps in your team of areas that might need to see, that could be benefited by having some type of structure, some type of intake process, or some type of just shared and secured location where you can work with your in-house staff and potentially work with your outside counsel. So if some of these spark your interest, I'm happy to meet with you at another time and talk a little bit more depth about how Smartsheet can handle those types of work. And the final thing, these are just a couple examples of our snapshots. We'll put that in our slide deck for the end for you here. And the last thing is that if you are familiar with the ILPM, this is a tool, or Smartsheet is one of the tools that's recommended by that group. So if you are interested in moving your project management and moving your legal department to the next level of ease of use, I highly recommend engaging us and in starting to work with Smartsheet on that side. That said, I think I've talked for plenty of time. This is the contact information for our headquarters. Aaron is, I think, the gentleman that actually ended up inviting you to this. He is our head over there in London, but I'll share my contact information at the end of this presentation. But that's the breadth of what I want to talk about today. I've reserved some time for questions if you have any. If not, thank you very much. I appreciate your rapt attention during our call today.
I had a question. Just how much
Sure.
setup time does it take to kind of implement something like Smartsheet within an, all
right, so I give you the lawyer answers, which is it depends. How big is your organization?
You mean the overall organization?
Or just the overall, let's say, like what would be your total number of matters in a year you think that you as a department are facing?
On average, I'd say upwards of 1,000.
Upwards of 1,000?
Yeah.
Okay, so that puts you more, that puts you on the larger side of a corporate legal department. What we would do first is, I think it would be to sit down and take a look at what are going to be the quickest wins, the quickest things that you'd want to implement. For example, that ticketing systems can be implemented very quickly. I mean, literally within 3 weeks, we could have the ticketing system piece of it going. The project management piece of it, on the other hand, is probably going to involve not only the presentation of the tools to you, but also the collection of input from your team as to what types of templates they would want to see, and a little bit of change management associated with moving their current process, where every attorney probably has their own process that they like to keep, and moving them into a more standardized process. Now that type of a project is sitting on the more 3 to 4 month period time range to implement that type of a deployment.
Just a follow-up question to that. How
Sure.
do the licenses work in terms of licenses only required for the legal team or also for users within the business?
Just the legal team is the short answer. Really, there are different levels of users in Smartsheet, but where the way we would price it is the full users that have access to create new sheets, create new matters. Those would be members of the legal team. Collaborators, and we call them free collaborators in the Smartsheet, they don't need a license. They can come in. So if they submit a request and then you ping them and you're trying to collect information back and forth from them, they can interact for free. And that's not part of the licensing costs of using the software.
And kind of ballpark, what are the license fees? Just
license fees. I ballpark is you're looking at probably about $1,000 per user, and it very much depends on the size per user per year, and then it really depends on the size of what we're deploying. So, if we're doing the full tool set, then it's going to be more expensive than if we're just doing a basic ticketing system. That's where I'd start your budgeting or planning for costs. Any other questions?
No, but thanks for the presentation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you all taking time out of the end of your day here to meet. And of course, if you have any questions, always feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to follow up with you individually.
You'll be sending around the slides after this.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
You all have registered on that
Yes.
dashboard, so we have your emails, and I'll send that out
Okay.
afterwards. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to hop off. So thanks very much, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Interesting presentation.
Great. Wonderful. Well, you all have a nice afternoon out there.
You too. Thanks, Cassie.
Okay.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.